one and all, my name is Ryan Bruce, my friends call me Fluff, and today on Riffs, Beards, and Gear, we're gonna shoot out a couple of bass guitars. So I recently went and caught the Deftones on their current tour, and I was struck by how crazy good bassist Fred Sablin's bass tone was, right? And then I saw he was playing what looked to be regular old P basses, and that got my gears turning. And over the course of the show, I came up with a thought process and a video idea in that it's crazy how well a bass from 1951 can sit in all sorts of genres of music. And then I got to thinking, what are the kind of the pillars of bass tones as it pertains to literally just about every genre? And I came up with 3, and we're gonna shoot out those 3 today. And before we go any further, this video is brought to you by the fine folks over at Sweetwater. They sent me a couple of the basses that I needed to do this video. Shout out to them. If you are a touring professional, gigging, weekend warrior, or just someone who likes to sit there and plunk away on a bass at home, please consider sweetwater.com. They have all of your needs, whether it's artistic or hobbyist and everything in between. All thoughts and opinions are mine. So when it comes to bass guitars and bass guitar tones, I think you can boil it down to 3 bass guitars that have transcended genre and time. And you see these 3 bass guitars pretty much everywhere, used across all styles of player, technique, sound, band setting. It doesn't really matter. They can really do it all, and they have withstood the test of time. That is, of course, the Fender P Bass, the Fender Jazz Bass, and the Music Man Stingray bass. I think those 3 basses above all other ones have really transcended everything and can be used and have been used in all manners of music, aggressive or not. Now, I'm not saying they're the only game in town, of course not. Shout out to Rickenbacker and Spector, and there's loads and loads of bass guitar tones that are equally as famous. However, when you objectively look at the tones and the recorded music that have used either a P bass, jazz bass, or Stingray bass, those far outweigh everything else. And that's why I think those are the 3 pillars of bass guitar tone. So as someone who records himself quite a bit playing bass, I have normally always stuck to just kind of Stingrays for obvious reasons. I'm a Music Man artist, and I think the Stingray is one of the most versatile basses I have ever played in my entire life, and I love them, and I have several of them. However, I had to wonder, well, would I really be gaining anything by using something else, or would I even notice a difference in the context of one of my own mixes? And that's what we are going to find out today. Now, as far as similarities between all 3 basses, they are all 34-inch scale. They are also made of alder, and that's basically where the similarities end. Now, the P bass is a single coil split pickup design. Of course, there is a single volume and a single tone. It's a very, very simple and effective bass. With the Fender Jazz Bass, you have 2 single coils that are voiced a little different, and they sound obviously a little different, and the controls are slightly different, as well as you have independent volume controls for each pickup and a global tone. And then you got the Stingray. Now, a stock Stingray Special is an 18-volt active bass, and this has a 3-band EQ, bass, middle, and treble, as well as a volume control. Now, I'm using a single humbucker model, which is the base model, because they do also offer twin humbucker models. But the humbucker is much, much louder and has a dramatically higher output than the single coils from both Fenders. So that is something to consider. However, for this shootout, I will be setting the EQ for the bass, middle, and treble at noon. No cut, no boost, right up the middle at the detent in the pots. So I will not be boosting treble frequencies and mid frequencies or anything like that. Straight up the middle, flat. Now, all three basses do have maple necks. However, I will note that the Music Man has an ebony board and the Fenders do not. But basically, these are all representative of the regular, straight up USA versions of their respective lines, okay? So I know there is a P bass with a jazz, there's a P and J pickup combination that you can get. There's all sorts of deluxe versions. There's active versions of both Fender models as well. There's also a passive version of the Ernie Ball Music Man. However, I feel like these three examples are indicative of the most common configuration of their respective models, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead and hear these three basses in the context of a mix. I will be flipping through in real time the different basses in and out of the mix. I will note on screen which one you are hearing, and then we'll do a second round and we will drop the band out and we will hear just the basses by themselves and we will A, B, and C those. And then we're gonna come back and then we're gonna talk about it. So what do I think? You know, the P and J bass are so good and they sit so well. It's crazy how much the P bass cuts through literally everything because it has that mid-range plunkiness that cuts through no matter if you're tuned in E standard or, you know, drop A. It really doesn't matter with that bass. It's about the pickup, it's about the placement, and it just sounds so classic. And it's classic for a reason. It's useful in every scenario. Me personally, I really like the jazz bass because it actually reminds me a lot of the 90s punk rock that I grew up listening to. And then you have the Stingray bass. Now the Stingray bass can do it all. It can do either one of those basses, the P or J basses. Obviously it is active and it requires batteries. It is also $1,000 more than the basses used in this video. Now, it is dramatically more versatile than the P and J basses. And really I feel like it's its own thing because it does have, sonically speaking, this upper end brightness that is very, very nice and pleasing. It has the mid range, but it's not that scooped as, say, the jazz bass, right? So really, it just depends on your personal preference and your own individual flavor that you're going for. I love all of them. I really, really do. This has been eye-opening for me personally because I was able to sit here and just play with the bass tones and kind of see what it added or didn't add to the mix. Yeah, they're all great. What do you think? What is your favorite bass guitar tone? What do you prefer to hear and what do you prefer to play? Leave a comment down below. Shout out to sweetwater.com for supporting and sponsoring this video. And with that, you've been wonderful. I've been Fluff. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.